So hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel today on the intersection of race and sports. It's hosted by CWU's Northwest Sport and CW Athletics and the Sport Management Association. Today, we are lucky to be joined by Mario Andaya, got that correct, head volleyball coach, Mal Stuman, who is the very important academic success coordinator for student athletes. We have Ajanique Doss. I actually feel like I met you before you track, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And Simone Brown, who's a basketball player. So I would like to first kind of give them the opportunity to speak a little bit about themselves, introduce themselves a little bit. And we can start with Mario, and then we can move down. After that, we can go Mal, we can go Simone, and then we'll go Ajay.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Well, when I said I'm the women's volleyball coach here at Central Washington, I'm going into my 25th year as the head coach. I actually came to Central Washington as a student athlete sometime around the same time as Mal, and back in 1989. My path to coaching was a little bit different than I thought going into women's volleyball, but I participated in athletics since when I was really young. But at the same time, I got into organized athletics because of our the resources we had when I was growing up, not until probably high school, which is pretty rare these days. And so, but my path to sports was really a journey, and it really kept me on track and through my childhood, and it led me to Central Washington as a student athlete, as an assistant coach, and now as a head coach. So pleasure to be here.
Hello, my name is Mal Stuman. As mentioned, I'm the academic success coordinator for student athletes at Central Washington University. I've been in this role since September of 2014. I've been at Central since the beginning of time. Let me think. Actually, 15 years at the university. But I did start there as a student as well in 1988, a year before Mario, and I was his mentor. No, just kidding. We have a good relationship. So, and I guess I started as a student athlete myself. I came to play a little bit of football, and I played a little bit of football, and had that experience, and kind of ended up staying really in Ellensburg, and kind of as it happens sometimes, and I'm really kind of finding my way, really wanting to be involved with students, and stay connected to athletics was my end goal. So I was able to do that. My pathway to sports, obviously, I started pretty young, playing soccer in the community, and was able to do whatever YMCA sports they had available. Basketball, soccer. Never really did baseball, and got into football probably about in eighth grade. And so that gave me the opportunity to go all the way through and play at Central. So that's pretty much my story.
Hi, I'm Simone. I'm a sophomore on the women's basketball team here at Central, and I've been playing basketball since second grade. I grew up in it, and I went to a private school, preschool through eighth grade, so I had a really tight-knit community, and I started playing for that school in fifth grade, and been doing AAU for as long as I can remember, bouncing around. Sometimes in one summer season, I'm playing on 4 different basketball teams just to get as much college exposure as I can. So yeah, basketball's kind of been my rock through everything, and I definitely had to deal with some heartache with the sport. I tore my ACL my sophomore year, was out for a year and 2 months, had to really grow and kind of find myself as an individual through that time, and that was a big college exposure time for me. I lost my junior season, so just a lot of growth and learning, and a lot of discipline came from this sport and all the people that I've met. So I'm very grateful for it. So.
I think it's my turn. Okay. All right. I'm Anjanique Das. My last year was my senior year. I do track and field for the school. What else do we say about ourselves? Where we're from, Tacoma, Washington. I don't know what else to say. My pathway to sports, I've played track. Well, I ran track for a very, very long time. Like, I've been doing it since I was like in elementary school, all the way up to now, I guess. So I built a passion for it. So that's basically it. That's my story.
Okay, thank you. Thank all of you for that, for sharing your story. And I think, as I know, we can all kind of relate in sports. I think a lot of people kind of participate, whether we're as good as, others to go play college. I think a lot of people play when they're young just to have fun. And even me, myself, I've played basketball for as long as I can remember, and I played 2 years in community college. So I can, again, relate a little bit. I didn't get to the next level, so I can't relate on the Division II level. There's probably more experiences that you guys have had as far as that than myself. But so to get into the first part of this conversation, we're going to be speaking about just, sports memories, sports memories that you have and experiences that you have that have been, good experiences. And so I just want to get to you, and we'll start again in the same order. So Mario, kind of if you could share a little bit about, playing sports growing up, which you did go into this a little bit, but, experiences that you had, or just, the positives that you had, what really made you, have a passion for sports, and since you're now coaching as well, if you want to start wherever, but, what got you to the coaching, what, passion led to keeping you in the sports, and how that kind of shaped your life?
Yeah, I think athletics has been a huge part of my life. It wasn't really in my family growing up. I grew up a little bit of a broken home, but I've had some my 3 older sisters who all did not really take the athletic path. So was born in Los Angeles and moved up to the Washington area back and forth. And I kind of decided to stay. Well, my mother decided to have us grow up with my grandmother up in the Seattle, Capitol Hill area. And once we moved to Seattle, in the Capitol Hill area at the time, it wasn't a great place, but I always had a ball in my hand. I had something in my hand. And we ended up moving to Bothell, which was a very brutal community back then. It's pretty grown up now, or it's grown since then. But I always use sports kind of as a getaway to keep my mind off of things, bouncing around and things like that. But then I started to make some friends in the neighborhood, just bouncing the ball around. And then I'd watch my friends go to Little League Baseball, and I didn't know what that was about. I'd go watch them through the fence, and I was one of the only, and this is positive, by the way, I was one of the only people of color in Bothell, right? So you had this brown kid watching, a lot of, just a white population there. And it was cool. I really liked what, what was happening. I wanted to be a part of something like that, organized sports, having friends and things like that. So it was a pretty cool deal where I got to meet some friends, and they've taken me in, and it was all through athletics. And then as time went on, going into high school, I started to excel at it. And so played football, basketball, and then in track. And then I ended up doing pretty well and getting some looks. And so ended up going to Central for football and track. And then started to, and my volleyball career actually was, we played a lot of volleyball. But when we moved up to Washington, it wasn't really a boys or a men's popular sport. So it was always kind of in the background. But anyways, during my high school career, I befriended my offensive coordinator at the Bothell High School, and he was actually on the men's AVP tour for sand volleyball. So we got to, he took me in between practices or between seasons. We started playing a lot of volleyball. But in any case, I went to Central Washington to play a couple other sports and ended up hanging up the cleats, the football cleats, after a year, and then stayed with the track and field. Did that for 4 years. Made it to nationals in the long jump. Nothing what they're jumping today, but in the D2 era. So proud to say I was an NAIA national participant. But yeah, and then at the same time, I started coaching club in high school volleyball. Got on with the women's team here as a student assistant, and then we had a JV team. They gave me the JV team with another buddy of mine, and then eventually I got the assistant job. And then the head coach at the time decided to retire, and I was 2 years as the first assistant, and they gave it to a young 25-year-old coach, and transitioning into D2, and I was thrown into the fire. I didn't know if they were thinking, okay, let's just get this guy in here and get him out after a while. But it actually turned out. I earned the trust of the players and learned as I went, had a lot of good mentors along the way. But athletics has given me a great opportunity to be around young people, young adults who have raised my kids through athletics, and they're off doing their thing. Met my wife here at Central, and she teaches in the math department. So a real positive story on the athletic end for sure.
Thank you for sharing. And I think it's really interesting how you said, volleyball wasn't really as present here, but you were able to still do volleyball through like a football coach. Like it's really cool how everything really all ties together in the sports world.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of things just are, you can merge some sports. I don't want to take up too much time, but the football, and I actually coach volleyball like I do a little bit of how football runs. So
that's also really interesting. Really, really interesting. I think I want to talk to you. I know more just about coaching in general, but I think for everybody, it's interesting to see how, coaching and teaching and anything like that, they can all really use some of the same principles and whatnot.
For sure.
Cool.
Yep.
And so, Mal, your turn to answer, I guess, the same question, the positive aspects of sports in your life growing up.
Yeah, like I said, I remember going out and playing. I'm from Tacoma as well, and but my family's from the South, and we got to Tacoma. I think it was always interesting, just different groups that I was a part of. I was part of a church crew. My family went to a certain church. I went to a certain school. There was a group of folks there, and then there were places where I played sports, and there were intersections in all those areas, people from all different places and stuff. And so I remember playing soccer and just kind of learning that sport. And I played that probably the most in my adolescent years, which most people would not believe now, given my size and everything. But, I was a pretty decent soccer player, maybe because of intimidation, I don't know. But it was a great thing. And I think one of the things that I always look back when I think about sports, and I can see this in every sport that I played, was kind of the camaraderie. I have one sister, two sisters really. I have another sister that was adopted into our family, but I was the only boy, and so I always found a lot of brotherhood and camaraderie in those teams that I was involved with. Just that rise and fall, winning with a group of guys and losing with a group of guys, really always stuck with me. It always impacted me. And being on a team, just the idea of being a part of that team, being a part of the team, was a real positive thing for me. And when I was coming up, I went to a few different schools. I went to a private school for a little bit, and then part of the way through, I went to public school at 8th grade. And then I went to high school, and then I switched high schools. I went to Lincoln High School, and then I went to Washington High School my 11th grade year. And so every time I had to make that transition, though, sports always gave me an in. I was always in quick. I was on the fast track always when I transitioned schools. So because I was a football player and that was the first sport of the year, and I was able to kind of make an impact on every team I came to, I was already in. So it always helped me fit into those I guess popular groups, and we all know how crucial that is in high school and middle school. So well, now it's just a thing, but I look back and go, man, that really helped me get in, especially when I had to transfer my junior year into high school, and a bunch of guys that had grown up together and stuff, and really, I remember that being just a positive thing, and I was able to connect with those folks really quickly. College was the same. Coming to college, again, we were here, a month before everybody else, got our feet on the ground. And I think what's really cool about sports is that when you're coming to college and getting recruited, and kind of you're getting visits, you're getting kind of to know the school. In fact, I'm still really good friends with the guy that was my host. His name's Eddie Carter, and him and Joe Sanders were our hosts, and that made an impact for me from that point. So just that connection we made with them. I mean, these guys are like brothers to me now, but that whole time just meeting them. So really, relationships really are the strongest point that I can think about when it comes to my experience playing sports. So.
As a military child, I definitely would agree with you in saying, that the sports really do, bring everybody together, and it makes it easier when you're moving a lot. Because I always had to do that. Like I was just like, I'm waiting for a season to start, because I know once I do that, I'll get in with whatever, I guess, like you said, popular crowd that I need to get in, so I can get to know some people. So yeah. I definitely see where you're coming from with that part. And you mentioned, camaraderie, which I'll get back to later, but I think that's a really good point, and we'll definitely focus on that more in that second half. So Simone, now it is your turn. If you could answer just the same question about sports for you growing up.
Okay, well, I kind of got thrown into basketball in second grade, and my dad, his best friend, he wanted to start up a team. He had a daughter same age as me, and my dad was like, oh yeah, I got a girl, she can play. Never picked up a basketball before in my life, and she's tall, she can do this and that. No, I couldn't do any of the stuff that he was saying, but those people that I grew up with, I'm from Kennewick, Washington, and it's a smaller town. White majority is the population here, and so I didn't really feel like there was a serious difference. I knew that I looked different. I was the only black kid in my class I was the only black kid in my class preschool through 8th grade, and middle school was when black kids actually started coming to my school. So that's how small it was, and so I knew I was different. I knew I looked different, but it never was something that I was just like, oh, I'm scared, or I feel like I need to act different. That my school was definitely my home, second family. My class loved all of those girls so much, girls and boys that I had, and I was kind of the same thing with my team. And I am best friends with a lot of those people that I grew up playing with in second grade. And we did a lot of tournaments in Mapton, Sunnyside, super small local area farm. It's a lot of farm area around Tri-Cities and stuff. So I did a bunch of tournaments every weekend, and I got to know all these people from all these small towns. And so it's really cool because I would go somewhere randomly, go to another gym somewhere for my little sister's tournaments, and people would be like, you're Simone, I know you, I watched you when you were playing when you were little. And so that was definitely one of the most positive things for me, is just how I really was able to make an impact with people, because basketball for me was my confidence. I was definitely more of a shy kid when I first introduced myself to people. I'm not at all anymore, but basketball was my home. That was my safe space, and being on the court, I could talk to anybody in the gym really and just be at ease, because we were all there to have fun, work hard, play together, and things like that. So there was no worry of, is this person gonna like me, or anything like that. So that was definitely one of my biggest, happiest memories from that, just all the people that I've met. And high school for me, basketball season every year was definitely the highlight. I did not care for the high school that I went to at all. I had some pretty rough experiences at that high school, but basketball was my rock through everything. And so when I did tear my ACL, my sophomore year, I lost my identity. I was the tall black girl that played on the basketball team, super good, and my team went to state every year, and that's what people knew me for. And so when I tore my ACL my sophomore year, at the end of it, that crushed me, and I was out for a year and 2 months. I had D1 looks at the end of my sophomore year when I was playing in all those tournaments, and I was getting recruiting letters and everything, and I was really excited about life. And then that happened, and I really had to do some soul searching and figure out, do I even want to put myself through this recovery process? Because there was a lot of complications with my injury afterwards. The recovery process was longer than it should have been, but I wouldn't take away any of it. I wouldn't change it at all. My injury was honestly a turning point for me, because it really showed me the hard work that I needed to put into being an athlete at the college level, especially at Central. Like, people especially were really trying to put a damper on me and be like, well, like, you got your senior year and then it's over. And I'm like, no, we're still going to college. We're still going to play. We're still going to grind it out. And that was definitely my biggest push, was because boys at that age in high school, they definitely like to get under my skin. And I was more of a tomboy too. I would go play at recess with the boys, beat them up on the court, beat them up in football. I didn't care. I always wanted to run with the boys and stuff. So they find out that I'm injured and I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. They're like, oh, you're just a girl now. Like, no, I'll still beat you up kind of thing. And so I just really, people telling me that, they kind of took pity on me, and that was kind of like, don't worry about it, I got it. And so I went through physical therapy like a champ, and then I found a trainer that just really showed me how much work it's gonna take for me to get back to where I was and actually be even better than where I was. And so I think I'm just a lot stronger of a player. My work ethic, it would not be, if I didn't play basketball, if I didn't go to the private school that I went to, thank God for my mom being as smart as she is. Like, she sacrificed a lot for me to be where I am at now. And that's like my biggest thank you, is shout out to my mom, because she really just, she showed me what hard work looks like. And I mimicked that, and I embodied that through basketball, through my schoolwork, and just everything that I do, I give 110%, because that's what coach says, that's what your parents say, that's what teachers say. So that's just something that's another really big positive that I take away. And then being up here at Central, it's just another family and another environment to be super productive in. Like, you don't have time to screw around. You have things to do. And I thrive in structured environments. So just being able to have that schedule every day for me personally has just been a really big blessing. And having Mal as my academic advisor, and then having my coach there in my corner too, whenever I need to go talk about something, or I always just have somebody in my corner. And that's something that I know a lot of kids that don't do sports struggle with, is having people in their corner. And I feel bad, because coaches are great. They're people too, and they've been through what you're going through. So it's just really nice to have all these different outlets that I've gotten, and just growing in this sport that I come to love so much. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. First, I'd like to say, it's great that you were able to see the positive, after the injury and all the things that it kind of brought to you after that. But then also, you do make a really good point with sports. It's more than just playing the sport, and more than just, with my teammates and with my coaches, we're playing basketball when we're done, where you go our own way. But there's so many people that are there for you in so many different ways. And like you said, also, they're people. So you can talk to you about basketball. She can also talk to you about being a person, things like that, which is why sports really are, just amazing. Like, I could say it a billion times. I know we all say it, We will go next to you, Arjanique. You can go ahead and give your little background about sports and how it kind of shaped you and all that good stuff.
Okay. I guess I'll just start in high school. Let's start there. Actually, we'll start in middle school. So in middle school, I played basketball and I ran track. So with these sports, I feel like it just helped me learn like what like grinding and hard work can do and all this other stuff. And when it came down to high school, I feel like each level or each level brings like different opportunities in your life that like that you have to work like just a little bit harder. And when it came down to track, like in high school, I was like, oh yeah, I'm good, this and that. But when you get to college, it's just like a whole different level. Like you got the lifting schedule, you gotta learn how to like time management. Like that's what I learned a lot. I learned like time management, I learned like priorities and a lot of other stuff, and it's like shaped me to like a lot of like good stuff with that. And with track, it's like there's like been like injuries and other stuff that I like came back from, like calf injuries and messing up my ankle and stuff like that. But it's just like when I get to that point, I try to like get to a point where I try to get better than what I was and stuff like that. So that's basically, mine's kind of like short, but that's what it is.
Okay, well, thank you. And I think you kind of still made a good point, as Simone did, with each level that you get to, like things are harder and you have to work harder. And I know we're talking about race in this, but also bring up the other elephant in the room as females. I feel like you also, like you said, Simone, you feel like you have to work even harder because you're playing with the guys. You're doing just as well as the guys. And then as soon as something happens to you, and now you don't have that, and they can now beat you maybe because you're literally injured, so you can't even participate. Now you feel like you have to work even harder to continue to elevate yourself and to get the respect. And even when you're doing as good as you can, you have to keep going. And so I think, it's like that's another motivation that always gets you going, that keeps you essentially, dedicated to doing what you have to do.